This week is a big one in the federal election, and my next guest is an undecided voter who is looking forward to the upcoming debates to help make up his mind. Josh Peterson is a firefighter, and he joins us now from Victoria. Thanks for making time for us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
First, I want to ask you, how closely are you watching all of the election campaign coverage or paying attention to what the leaders are saying this time around compared to other elections?
I tend to pay close attention as a federal employee because it really does have an effect on my daily life. This time even more so because things have been upended so much since December when Justin Trudeau stood down, announced his step down. So I'm watching very closely.
You know, we heard the themes for the upcoming debates. A lot of it is energy and climate, tariffs, the trade war, public safety and security. Are any of those top of mind for you? What is top of mind in terms of themes that you want to hear from the federal leaders?
I think as far as my employment goes, I think about Department of National Defense. I think about what needs to be improved and how budgets need to be expanded. And then on the family side of things, I think of social programs and how we can secure our future and ensure we're doing what we need for our family and friends socially. So I have two things that affect me the most, which would be my employment and my family.
Okay, so when you're listening to what all of the federal leaders are saying or the candidates are saying on the campaign trail, do you feel like your concerns are being addressed?
I feel that's a tough question. I feel there's a lot of noise and a lot of static, and being able to figure out what affects me most and if it's addressing it. And I think that they're all saying what they need to say as far as following the policies, but what will actually happen after the election is a different story. I think I look at retirement issues for myself as a federal firefighter, and the promises made by parties so far, and promises not made, and it has me swaying. But in our riding out here in Victoria, there's really good candidates, quality candidates running for all the parties, and there's a good potential for vote splitting. So I look at that, and I have to make a decision based on that. And as a family of four, we have 4 votes in our family.
And so in terms of the topics then that I outlined, none of them are health, but we know that the NDP, and I was just speaking with an NDP strategist as well about this, but the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, has said, even though it's not outlined as one of the themes to be up for questions at the debate, he intends to bring up healthcare in this country. What do you make of that?
Well, healthcare is super important. It's getting lost in a lot of the noise right now with what's happening down south. And I think that healthcare should be talked about. It has to be forefront. I know so many people that don't have a family doctor, so many people that need a family doctor. And I'm glad that the NDP is bringing it forward. And I would hope the Liberals will speak about it. And I hope to hear the Conservatives speak about it.
As someone who is an engaged voter, an engaged consumer of election coverage, I'm wondering how much of a difference will the debate performance make in how you choose to vote?
You know, I don't know if I'm looking for a gotcha moment from somebody or if they're going to say something that's going to make me go, aha. I think what's really going to matter for me is our all candidates meeting that we're holding out in our regions. And I'm going to try to attend a couple, so I can actually hear from the people running our regions. Because when it comes down to it, if your local MP isn't advocating for what you want and what you want to see, you can't change government. You have to have the local MP advocate, and I recognize that. I can say what I like about the national leaders, but it's the local MPs that will be able to sway what we need going forward for the future, I think.
You know, you mentioned that there are 4 votes coming out of your household. Have there been debates within your own family on what the right way to vote is?
We have some strong personalities in our family, especially as my children get older. I don't think we have a debate so much, but there's a lot of discussion what's being said, and you know, there's a lot of one-liners being thrown out, and some of us have been around long enough to know the last time there was a major change in government and what was done before. And so we keep that in mind when we look at what we're going to vote this time. And we know socially, progressively what the NDP says and how they stand. We know it, but they're not looking like they're going to form government. And we have very, very progressive candidates out in our region right now that seem more NDP than I've ever seen a Liberal be. And so you're looking at that, and I think there's going to be some vote splitting. So we have the conversation, but I'd like to see all 4 votes go to the same party in our area, so we can make sure we get an MP that will represent us in Ottawa.
Very finally, I wanted to ask you, Josh, a little bit more of a broad question, just about getting information about the parties, their platforms. Has it been more complicated this time to get that information and to make sure it's actually true?
When you say true, do you mean that they'll follow through on what they say?
I mean that it's accurate reporting, because there have been, misinformation campaigns, disinformation campaigns. There are regular briefings on election interference. So I'm wondering whether or not that's something that you've found somewhat complicated to navigate this time around.
I don't think I personally have. I think I'm fairly engaged. I get my news from a lot of sources, and I look at what's happened, what parties have done. I look at what they vote on in their conventions, and I look at what they plan to do. If they're planning on cutting 17,000 jobs from the federal service, I'm aware of what the platforms are, and whether they govern from the left or they go from the left and then they switch to the right when they govern. I'm aware of that, and I'm also aware it's a 2-party race right now. I like to think that we could have a really good minority parliament like we did last round. I think that the more the government represents us, the better for all of us.